I grew up learning how to move quietly, as if silence might convince the world I was ordinary. Ordinary girls didn't walk with shadows that twitched like restless animals. Ordinary girls didn't see their silhouettes lag behind, reaching toward door frames and corners as though they hungered for someplace darker, colder, truer than daylight allowed. My name is Seraphina. I learned to keep my eyes forward, my voice steady, and my feet quick, because the faster I walked, the harder it was to notice the way my shadow refused to walk with me. The curse announced itself when I was 6, though no one understood it then. I had thrown a tantrum in the yard, the kind of childish storm that comes suddenly and burns out just as fast. I had screamed, flailed my arms, and watched my small shadow split. Not fully, just a tremor, like something underneath my feet was trying to stand on its own. My mother dragged me inside, paled as though she'd seen a ghost, and told me never to speak of it. By the time I turned 23, silence had become the armor I wore most naturally. Not that it helped. My shadow had grown bold. Sometimes it moved half a heartbeat slower than I did. Sometimes faster. Sometimes its head turned sharply in a direction I wasn't looking. People never noticed. Or maybe they refused to notice. Except him. The day everything fractured was a dusk-washed evening, the kind where the air carried the scent of rain and the roads glimmered like wet slate. I worked late at the cafe because routine gave me a sense of control. Closing meant wiping tables, humming under my breath, pretending life unfolded normally. The bell over the door jingled after closing time. I turned, already ready to tell someone we were done for the night, and froze. He was big. Not in the way bodybuilders look big, but in the way forests seem big, ancient, unchanged, something that made the air shift around him. He had the rough edges of a wanderer, clothes dusted with road dirt, eyes sharp and predatory. A rogue wolf, though I didn't know that then. Only that something in him seemed to sniff straight through the facade I had built my life upon. "You shouldn't be here," I said. His gaze dropped to my feet, but not to my feet, to the shadow at them. It was still, for once. Behaving. But he frowned like he spotted something no one else could. "Your shadow," he murmured. "It's marked." Marked. I felt the word like a cold chain settling around my throat. "I don't know what you're talking about," I lied. I lied the way drowning people say they're fine. He stepped closer, nostrils flaring as if scent alone confirmed his suspicions. "There's a curse on you," he said. "Old. Tainted. Dangerous." I held my breath and hoped he'd vanish the way strangers often vanished from my life. But he didn't. He smelled of pine smoke and damp fur, as though the wilderness followed him indoors, and he studied me with a severity that felt ancient. "What do you want?" I whispered. "Not want," he replied. "Warn." The lights flickered overhead. The long mirror behind the counter buzzed faintly. And my shadow, my betrayer, lifted its hand a full second after mine stayed frozen by my side. His eyes widened. "You have no idea what owns you." A tremor ran through my body. I had always feared the strange thing that clung to me, but hearing someone else acknowledge it made the terror more real than ever. "Who are you?" I asked, though fear made my voice thin. "Leonardo," he said. "Rogue of the Western Ridge. And the last wolf who knows the signs of a shadow claim." The room felt colder. My lungs fought to draw breath. "Shadow claim?" I repeated. He looked at me with something like sorrow. "It means a shadow alpha has already laid claim to your life." My heart staggered in my chest. "You're wrong," I said. But my shadow didn't mirror the shake of my head. It jerked sharply, looking as though it wanted to crawl toward him. He growled low. Not angry, warning. Protective. "You're already linked," he told me. "And if the shadow alpha comes to collect you, the daylight realm won't be able to keep you." Outside, thunder rolled like a beast waking from sleep. My shadow moved again, a twitch at first, then a stretch longer than my body should allow. Leonardo stepped in front of me just as the cafe lights snapped and went dark. The room fell into a hush so full of tension it hummed. "Get behind me," he said. "He's here." A chill swept down my spine as though invisible fingers trailed it. The air thickened with something unseen but suffocating, like darkness expanding with a pulse of its own. The window panes trembled. My shadow lengthened across the floor, reaching toward the door, welcoming something I couldn't yet see. Then a voice, not spoken aloud, but whispered inside the marrow of my bones. Seraphina. I nearly buckled. Leonardo steadied me. You feel him, Leonardo said. Good. Now listen carefully. Do not answer. The shadows in the room deepened, swallowing the corners first, creeping outward like spilled ink. Somewhere within that void, something breathed. Mine. My shadow lifted off the floor, rising like smoke, elongating into a shape that resembled a hand reaching out eagerly. Leonardo snarled, his body shifting slightly, bones cracking, not fully transforming, but close enough to show the wolf beneath his skin. Get out, he growled at the darkness. She's not yours. The shadows shrank back. A laugh echoed from nowhere and everywhere. The ravenous breath of the unseen creature folded inward, withdrawing as though amused rather than threatened. Then the pressure vanished. My shadow dropped limp to normal. Leonardo exhaled shakily. You're cursed, he said. And now he knows you're awakening. I pressed my hand to my chest to keep from crumbling. What do I do? He met my gaze with a grimness that carried centuries of knowledge. You run. And pray you're ready when the shadows decide they're done waiting. Rain hammered the roof. My shadow curled around my feet like a dark serpent in contented slumber. For the first time in my life, I realized it wasn't just a distortion of light. It was alive. And it was listening. Leonardo insisted we leave that night. He didn't give me time to pack more than a jacket, a battered notebook, and the old silver pendant my mother had left me before she died. The pendant was crescent-shaped, etched with swirls that looked almost like runes. I had never understood it, but I wore it anyway. It felt like protection, even if I didn't know why. We rode on his motorcycle, the engine growling beneath me as the city lights dissolved behind us. It was past midnight, the roads empty, the world drowned in darkness. The strange thing was that the darkness didn't feel still. It moved. It watched. And every time I blinked, I swore my shadow on the pavement rippled in unnatural ways. Leonardo's shoulders were tense the entire ride. Wolves, it seemed, could smell fear. They could smell danger too. And whatever clung to me, it reeked of both. We arrived at a cabin deep in the woods, one that looked abandoned to anyone passing by. But the moment we stepped inside, I realized it was fortified. Herbs hung from beams. Chalk sigils marked the door frames. I didn't recognize the symbols, but Leonardo traced one with reverence. These help keep the shadow realm from breaching, he said. For now. I sat on the couch, hands trembling as he lit lanterns one by one. Their warm glow chased away the deep corners of the room, but not the weight pressing against my spine. He said my name, I whispered. Leonardo nodded. That means he has your scent. Your essence. And your fear, most of all. I wrapped my arms around myself. Why me? He hesitated, jaw tightening. There are legends, he said. Stories of humans born with shadow anomalies. Those children were taken by the shadow alphas claimed as mates, weapons, or conduits. They were rare. Dangerous. Destined. The word mate made my stomach twist. I'm not his mate. Leonardo glanced at my feet. My shadow curled possessively around them, as though responding to the thought. You don't get to choose, he said softly. Shadow bonds are older than wolf law. His words punched the breath out of me. I leaned back, trying to steady myself, when a flicker in the corner of my vision caught my attention. My shadow. Stretching. Slowly. Toward the darkest corner of the room. Leonardo noticed at the same time. He lunged, slamming his hand against a sigil etched on the floor. A burst of faint silver light pulsed outward, and my shadow snapped back into place like a scolded animal. Don't let it wander, he said. Every time it reaches beyond your control, he strengthens his hold. I don't know how to stop it. You will, he said. Because you have to. He crouched in front of me, his voice shifting into something like a vow. Seraphina, you are not owned by darkness. Not unless you surrender. His conviction steadied something in me. For a moment, I could breathe again. But the reprieve didn't last. A cold draft brushed against the back of my neck. I turned. There, on the wall opposite me, my shadow lifted its head. I hadn't moved. Leonardo cursed. He's breaching. The lanterns flickered. The temperature dropped until my breath fogged the air. My shadow elongated, rising into a humanoid silhouette. Its eyes opened hollow, glowing, void, and I felt something inside me pull toward it, like a thread being yanked taut. A voice unfurled in my mind. Step into the dark, Seraphina. You're mine. Leonardo grabbed my arms. Fight it. Anchor yourself. I tried. I truly did. But the pull was relentless. My feet shifted involuntarily toward the living shadow. I can't, I gasped. You can, he growled. His wolf surfaced in his eyes, golden and fierce. Look at me. Not him. I forced my gaze upward. Leonardo's presence hit me like a bolt, grounding, powerful, a lighthouse cutting through the storm inside my veins. You're stronger than the curse, he said. You're stronger than him. The shadow hissed, its form twisting. Mine. Leonardo snarled, stepping between me and the creeping silhouette. You don't get to take her, he spit into the darkness. Not while I breathe. A black wave surged toward us, windless, shapeless, hungry. Leonardo slammed both hands onto the chalk sigils. The symbols flared bright. The shadows resisted, writhing like something alive caught between realms, then recoiled violently, snapping back into the corners of the room until nothing but regular darkness remained. My shadow fell flat on the floor. Normal again. Innocent. Sleeping. I collapsed to my knees, shaking so violently I could barely keep upright. Leonardo knelt beside me, placing a steadying hand on my back. He's pushing harder than expected, he said. You're awakening faster. Awakening into what? His expression softened, pained. You're not entirely human, Seraphina. My chest tightened. What does that mean? He hesitated before speaking again, as if choosing words that wouldn't shatter me too quickly. Your shadow isn't just attached to you. It's bound to something older. Something from the other side. And it's responding because your bloodline has started to activate. Bloodline. The word buzzed in my skull like a warning. Leonardo continued. You're the daughter of a woman who crossed 2 realms. And the Shadow Alpha knows it. The world tilted under me. My mother, I whispered. He nodded. She wasn't from here. The cabin groaned, its timbers creaking as though reacting to my rising panic. Leonardo steadied me again. You're in the middle of a war you don't understand yet, he said. Light wolves. Shadow wolves. 2 realms that have hated each other for centuries. And me? You're the bridge, he said. The key. The curse. The salvation. The threat. My breath caught. And the Shadow Alpha, Leonardo added quietly, believes you belong to him. Lightning cracked outside. My shadow trembled in the lantern glow, pulse matching mine. I didn't know whether to scream, run, or collapse. All I knew was this. The darkness had found me, and it wasn't going to let me go. Leonardo barred the windows before dawn, shutting out the crawling shadows that clung to the tree line. The cabin stood like a lone heartbeat inside a forest that no longer felt like just a forest. Every tree leaned inward. Every breeze carried whispers. Every shadow stretched a little too far, reaching for me as though summoned. By morning, exhaustion dragged at my bones. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at my hands. They trembled faintly, as if my body still remembered the pull of the Shadow Alpha's voice. Leonardo watched me from across the room, his stance alert, his eyes always scanning the floor where my shadow lay unnervingly quiet. You need to rest, he said softly. I can't. Rest meant letting my guard down, and letting my guard down meant giving the darkness another chance to slip fingers around my throat. Leonardo crossed the room and stood in front of me. His presence grounded me, his energy fierce and steady. The wolf inside him hummed beneath his skin, a silent vow of protection. You're fighting a realm that's older than wolf packs, he said. No one wins that battle without help. I stared at my shadow again. It shifted, just barely. A ripple, like a breath. Leonardo noticed it instantly, his jaw tightening. He's testing the boundaries, he murmured. The Shadow Alpha wants to see how far he can push before you break. I'm not going to break. A slow hum vibrated through the room. My shadow responded first, twitching like a muscle tightening. Then the lantern flame shivered. The walls darkened as though the daylight outside had been swallowed. Leonardo moved in front of me, his body half-shifting again, the wolf rising in a protective ridge under his skin. He's close, he growled. A pulse surged through my spine. A cold throb, rhythmic and deep. I felt him, felt the alpha, felt his heatless presence, a gravity that pulled at the edges of my soul. Seraphina. The voice didn't shout. It whispered like silk dragging across stone. My breath left me in one sharp exhale. Leonardo's hand closed around my wrist, anchoring me to this realm. He won't stop, I rasped. No, Leonardo said. He won't. Not until you learn to push back. Another pulse spread from my chest to my fingertips, like a jolt of electricity sparking from a buried wire. My shadow rose. It peeled upward slowly, its head lifting, its limbs stretching. Leonardo pressed me behind him, but the force was already threading through the room. A deep tear formed in the corner, a rip in the fabric of the world, not wide, but wide enough to bleed shadow. A figure stepped through. He didn't walk. He materialized. The Shadow Alpha. Tall. Graceful. Wrapped in darkness shaped like armor. His hair flowed like cascading ink, and his eyes burned like twin silver voids. Every breath he took warped the air, bending it toward him. He didn't look at Leonardo. He only looked at me. You are late, he murmured, his voice carrying the softness of nightfall and the violence of a collapsing star. Your awakening should have begun years ago. Leonardo stepped forward, claws half-grown, a warning rumbling from deep inside him. You're trespassing. The Alpha tilted his head, amused. You trespassed the moment you touched what belonged to me. The shadows on the floor thickened, swirling around my feet like eager tendrils. I tried to step back, but they held me, not painfully, possessively. Let her go, Leonardo snarled. The Shadow Alpha finally acknowledged him. You protect her as though you understand her lineage. His gaze returned to me. You carry the blood of two worlds. Your shadow is your birthright. And your birthright calls you home. My throat tightened. My shadow rose tall behind me, mirroring the Alpha's posture. Leonardo moved to block it, but the Alpha flicked a hand, and a wave of energy sent Leonardo crashing into the wall. No! I lunged toward him, but the shadows held me in place. Leonardo groaned, struggling to rise. Don't let him take you. The Alpha's presence wrapped around me like frost. You were never meant for this realm. You were born in the light only because your mother fled her destiny. My heart stopped. My mother. I whispered, breath shaking. The Alpha's expression softened, disturbingly gentle. She was a daughter of the Shadow Realm. A rare blood. She carried both creation and destruction in her veins. Just like you. His hand lifted, reaching toward my cheek. Come home, he murmured. Your shadow awaits its true form. And once you learn what you are, no wolf, no light, no mortal bond will be able to contain you. A violent pull tore through me. My shadow stretched, widening, shifting into something nearly humanoid. Bones of darkness. Tendons of smoke. Lips curling in silent mimicry. Leonardo staggered to his feet. Fight him, he growled. Fight him, Seraphina. The Alpha's eyes narrowed. Do not listen to that stray. His kind destroyed your mother's line. My heart slammed against my ribs. That dark pull intensified, raw, magnetic, hypnotic. My shadow wrapped around my legs like chains of silk. Seraphina, the Alpha whispered, walk with me. The world snapped. A darkness swallowed the light, and the cabin dissolved beneath my feet. A heartbeat later, I stood somewhere else entirely. The sky above me churned with storms of black fire. The ground glowed faintly with veins of blue light. Shadows moved like sentient beasts in the distance, prowling through a landscape carved from obsidian and dusk. The Shadow Realm. I didn't walk. I drifted. The Alpha stood beside me, a towering presence etched from the essence of this place. This is your destiny, he said. This is your origin. This realm recognizes you." The shadows shifted, bowing subtly at my arrival as though greeting royalty. My breath shook. "My shadow," I whispered. The Alpha nodded. "It is not attached to you. It is a part of you. An extension of your will. It is alive because you are. And if I don't want this?" He smiled, slow and knowing. "Then you will break." A tremor shuddered through the air. The shadows flickered violently. Something tugged hard from behind me. Leonardo's voice thundered through the realm, distant but relentless. "Seraphina, hold on." The Alpha snarled. "He is trying to pull you back." The force grew stronger. My body jerked backward. The Alpha grabbed my wrist, the darkness around him swirling like a storm. "You belong here." "No," I whispered. "I belong to myself." The Shadow Alpha's grip tightened. Leonardo's pull strengthened. My shadow split, half surging toward the Alpha, half dragged toward the tear back to the daylight realm. My body tore between two worlds. Pain lanced through me, but through the pain, I felt something else. A voice deep inside. "Make a choice." The realm trembled violently. I chose. I yanked my arm free of the Alpha's grasp and let the pull of the daylight realm rip me backward. The Shadow Alpha roared, a sound that cracked the sky. Leonardo's hands closed around me as I flew through the tear, collapsing into his arms on the cabin floor. The door slammed shut by unseen force. The shadows withdrew like a wounded beast. Leonardo cupped my face, breath ragged. "You came back." My shadow lay limp beneath me, its edges frayed, as though torn between two loyalties. I looked at Leonardo, chest heaving. "The shadow realm won't let me go," I whispered. Leonardo held me tighter. "Then we fight it." Lightning split the sky outside. And my shadow, alive, defiant, shuddered in warning. The war had begun. The cabin felt like a cage. Not because of the walls, but because of what pressed against them, an ocean of shadows waiting for their chance to seep in. Every hour, another flicker. Another twitch from my shadow, recovering from the tear between realms. Leonardo walked the perimeter endlessly, checking sigils, sharpening claws, listening to the forest with his wolf senses. After returning from the shadow realm, my body carried its cold imprint. My heartbeat echoed strangely, the rhythm off by a second, as if something else inside me was breathing too. By midday, the pressure in the cabin surged again. Leonardo stopped pacing. "It's starting." My shadow. "No," he said. "You." The pendant around my neck warmed suddenly. The metal shimmered, glowing faintly with the same eerie blue veins I'd seen in the shadow realm. I gripped it tightly. "Why is it doing this?" Leonardo crouched beside me. "Because you triggered the bloodline. You stepped into the realm. Part of it woke up inside you." The words carved fear into my skin, but fear wasn't the only thing rising. Something darker stirred. A pulse shuddered up my spine. My shadow rose again, taller this time, dragging itself upward like it had limbs of its own. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, studying me as though evaluating, judging. And then it moved without me. It stepped forward. Leonardo lunged, pulling me out of its reach. "It's not fully bound to you anymore. You're losing control." The shadow lunged. Not at me. At the window. It slipped through the cracks like smoke, oozing into the forest with violent speed. Leonardo cursed loudly. "It's going for someone." Panic sliced through me. "I have to stop it." He grabbed my shoulders. "You can't fight it alone." "It's my shadow." "It's also a weapon," he growled. "Your weapon. But right now, it belongs to the Alpha." A cold realization hit me. The Alpha wasn't trying to kill me. He was trying to make me kill. Leonardo sniffed the air, eyes narrowing. "Your shadow is heading toward the hunter's camp." My blood froze. Hunters meant humans. Innocent people. I broke away from him. "We have to go." Leonardo didn't argue. He shifted partially, his legs thickening with wolf muscle, claws replacing nails. He lifted me onto his back effortlessly, and we tore into the forest, trees blurring past in streaks of earthy green and clawed black. The forest grew darker with every leap. Not naturally darker, smothered darker. The shadows clung to the branches, the air turning thick with the alpha's influence. Leonardo skidded to a stop as screams shattered the silence ahead. We found them. 3 hunters attempted to fend off a writhing mass of darkness. My shadow expanded into a monstrous silhouette with hooked limbs and glowing hollow eyes. It didn't attack like a creature. It attacked like a thought. Pure instinct. Pure hunger. No, the word ripped from my throat. Stop. My shadow didn't listen. It lunged at a hunter pinned beneath a tree root, mouth stretching open in a grotesque, silent scream. Leonardo rushed forward, shoving the man out of harm's way. The shadow slammed into him, sending him rolling across the ground. He managed to pin it down with glowing claws, but the darkness twisted, slipping free like liquid hatred. I felt its intention. I felt its hunger. And I felt the alpha whispering inside its form. She will destroy them for me. My breath fractured. A prophecy clawed at the edges of my consciousness, something the alpha had tried to bury inside me when we touched realms. A vision exploded across my mind. 2 realms collapsing. Wolves bleeding into darkness. My shadow towering over burning forests. My hands drenched in 2 worlds' destruction. A shudder tore through me as I gasped back into reality. Leonardo grabbed my shoulders, shaking me gently. What did you see? I swallowed hard. A prophecy. One where I destroy everything. Both realms. Leonardo's jaw hardened. Prophecies aren't fate. My shadow hurled itself at another hunter. I didn't think. I moved. The pendant around my neck burned like fire. I grabbed it, squeezing until my palm blistered. I stepped forward, ignoring Leonardo's shout behind me. The shadow turned to me, hesitating. It recognized the pendant. It recognized the bloodline. Enough, I whispered, my voice trembling. The pendant exploded in light. My shadow shrieked soundless, but shaking the air with its agony, and collapsed into a billowing mass at my feet. I dropped to my knees, pressing my palm flat against the ground. Return. The darkness crawled reluctantly toward me, thick and trembling. I clenched my teeth, forcing myself to breathe through the pain of binding a creature that was half me, half alpha. Return, I repeated more firmly. The shadow hesitated, then slid beneath my skin. I gasped, dropping forward as cold fire coursed through my veins. Leonardo caught me before I hit the ground, pulling me close, steadying the violent shivers racking my body. You bound it, he murmured. You actually forced it back. It wasn't strength, I whispered. It was blood. Leonardo pressed his forehead to mine, breathing hard. Your mother's blood. I nodded weakly. She came from the shadow realm. That's why the alpha wants me. Because I'm the bridge. A howl tore through the forest, deeper than Leonardo's, older than any wolf. The alpha. Calling for me. Trembling, I leaned into Leonardo, clutching his arms. He's not going to stop, I whispered. Leonardo held me tighter. Neither will I. The forest fell silent. My shadow lay dormant beneath my skin, but its pulse beat in tandem with mine now. Alive. Listening. Waiting. And I finally understood. The prophecy wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. The forest never truly recovered from the night my shadow tore through it. Even at dawn, a bruise lingered over the treetops, a dark smear of energy clinging to the leaves. Leonardo guided me back to the cabin, but the place no longer felt like a shelter. The walls held tension, the sigils flickered with weakness, and the shadows pressed against the windows like fingers testing glass. My pulse kept slipping in and out of sync, as though another heartbeat overlapped mine. The pendant still burned against my chest, the mark of my bloodline glowing faintly beneath the surface. Leonardo paced in front of me, wolf instincts restless, his gaze flicking between me and the shifting darkness gathering in corners. You need training, he said, voice low with urgency. Real training. What happened today was only the beginning. My shadow nearly killed people. And you stopped it. His eyes softened, pride threading through the severity. But you won't always get to it in time. You have to learn control before the alpha decides to use your power for something bigger. The air thickened, humming with the memory of that prophecy. The destruction of both realms. Fire swallowing forests. Shadows eclipsing skies. My body shivered, remembering the vision seared behind my eyelids. Leonardo knelt beside me. There's a way to anchor your shadow. To teach it to respond to you instead of the alpha. My throat tightened around the weight of what he was suggesting. Shadow training. He nodded. But the only creature capable of teaching you that is the one trying to claim you. The idea froze my blood. The alpha. The shadow-born predator who tore through realms like smoke. The one who whispered my name as if he had designed it himself. The one who believed I belonged to him. Leonardo must have sensed my hesitation. He reached out, brushing his thumb against my cheek, grounding me. This isn't about submission. It's about weaponizing knowledge he thinks you're too afraid to learn. The air in the cabin rippled. Shadows trembled at our feet as if they sensed the shift inside me, the quiet fury building. I'm done being afraid, I whispered. Leonardo held my gaze with fierce approval. Then you're ready. Without another word, he sliced his palm with a claw. His blood shimmered, glowing faintly gold. He pressed his hand against the sigil carved into the floor, and the room pulsed with a violent surge of energy. A tear opened in the center of the cabin, small, trembling, but widening as darkness gathered. The shadow realm called. My shadow rose like a beast waking beneath my skin, trembling with yearning. Leonardo grabbed my hand. I'll go with you. I nodded once, breath sharp. Let's finish this. We stepped through. The shadow realm unfolded around us like a living nightmare. The sky churned with storms of silver and black. The ground vibrated beneath every step, as though something massive slept beneath the surface. Creatures made of smoke prowled the edges of the world, watching but not approaching. The alpha appeared before us like a ripple of darkness turning solid. His presence unraveled the air. His eyes, twin voids of silver, dragged across me with slow hunger. You returned on your own. Good. Leonardo growled. She's not here for you. The alpha ignored him completely. You are here because your shadow is awakening, he said. And if you don't learn control, it will devour you. The pendant pulsed against my chest in warning. My shadow rose involuntarily, stretching tall behind me, mirroring something ancient and violent. The alpha extended his hand toward it. Show me. The moment his voice touched the air, my shadow surged forward. It grew limbs, a torso, a head, and its eyes opened, hollow, endless, alive. It bowed before him, trembling with recognition. Leonardo snarled and stepped between us. Back off. The alpha shifted his gaze to him, cold and disdainful. You don't belong here, stray. A pulse of power slammed outward, knocking Leonardo several feet back. I staggered toward him, but the alpha caught my arm, gentle but unyielding. Leave him. He is not your threat. I am your only danger. And your only truth, something inside me whispered. His touch burned, not with heat, but with awareness. My shadow reacted instantly, rising taller, stretching skyward like a living extension of the alpha's will. Do you feel it? He murmured. Your power waking. Your realm calling. It did call, deep, resonant, like a heartbeat buried in the ground. A power I didn't understand. A power I feared. You must control it, he said, or it will consume you. Teach me, I said, breath unsteady. Leonardo stiffened in the distance, pain and fury etched into his features. The alpha smiled faintly. Good. He stepped back, shadows swirling around him like sentient smoke. Begin by commanding it. I turned to my shadow. It towered above me, rippling with hunger. Its fingers twitched, wanting to reach, wanting to tear. It didn't look like mine anymore. It looked like a creature carved from the alpha's realm. Stand down, I whispered. It didn't obey. The alpha's voice rolled through the realm like thunder. Again. Stand. Down. My voice sharpened. The shadow hissed silently. The alpha circled behind me, his presence enveloping me with cold authority. You don't command it with fear. You command it with identity. Identity. Not weakness. Not submission. I inhaled sharply. I am not your servant. The shadow quivered. I am not your weapon. It flickered violently. I am your master. My shadow froze. Then slowly, reluctantly, it bowed. The alpha watched with intrigue flickering in his silver eyes. Good, he murmured. But this is only the first lesson. His hand settled on my spine, a cold imprint of power. My knees nearly buckled as energy surged from him into my body, awakening something dormant. My shadow rose again, not rebellious this time, but trembling as if sensing a deeper connection forming. The alpha leaned close to my ear. Now, he said, you learn to fight. Darkness exploded around us. Hours passed, if hours even existed here. Time moved differently, slipping through my fingers. The alpha pushed me relentlessly. Every command, every breath, every movement shaped my shadow into something sharper. Faster. Deadlier. Leonardo watched helplessly from the sidelines, his claws digging into the ground every time the alpha touched me. Yet he didn't interfere. He couldn't. The shadow realm itself held him back. By the end, my body collapsed onto the obsidian ground, shaking with exhaustion. The alpha knelt in front of me, lifting my chin. Your shadow bends to you now. But remember, if you slip, even once, it will turn on you just as quickly. Leonardo finally broke through the barrier and rushed to my side. He pulled me against him, shielding me from the alpha's reach. The alpha's expression cooled. Be careful, Stray. Her shadow does not share your attachment. Leonardo growled low, but his arms stayed around me, steady and warm. I forced myself to stand, trembling but determined. I know what I am now. I know what my mother was. And I know what you want from me. The alpha stepped closer, shadows coiling at his feet like worshippers. Then you understand that this realm is yours by blood. I understand that you think that. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, brief but real. Leonardo's arm tightened protectively. We're leaving. The alpha's gaze darkened. She'll return. The prophecy guarantees it. I met his eyes. Prophecies can be broken. He smiled. Not this one. The realm trembled beneath us. The alpha reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face with a touch that felt like shadowfire. When your shadow finally hungers, you'll come back to me. And when you do, 2 realms will kneel. Leonardo dragged me toward the tear before the alpha could speak again. Darkness clung to my skin, resisting our escape. I felt it pulling, pleading, whispering. Come back. Come home. The tear sealed behind us the moment we stumbled back into the cabin. Leonardo held me tightly, burying his face in my hair. Are you hurt? No, I whispered. But as I looked down, my shadow stretched across the floor, longer than my body. And it was smiling. The forest no longer breathed the way forests should. The birds had vanished. The wind had hushed. Even the sunlight filtering through the branches felt thinner, tainted. My shadow prowled beneath my feet, restless after the training in the shadow realm. It moved with new intention, responding sharply to every shift in my heartbeat. Leonardo stayed within arm's reach, pacing like the wolf inside him was begging to surface. The cabin floor groaned beneath his weight, his muscles coiled in tension. We can't stay here, he said. Not after what the alpha awakened in you. He wasn't wrong. Every time I blinked, the shadows around me expanded. Every time I breathed, something ancient stirred under my skin. A power I didn't fully understand. A power that terrified me. Leonardo grabbed his pack. The light wolves can help. They know how to anchor spirits. They have rituals that stabilize hybrid bloodlines. My mother's bloodline isn't hybrid, I murmured. It's shadowborn. He stopped. His jaw clenched. Then they need to know that, too. A deep vibration rolled through the ground before I could answer. The cabin windows rattled. The shadows in the corners rippled, rising like smoke. Leonardo shoved me behind him, his claws half-shifting. That's not the alpha, he muttered. Something else is coming. Something older. Something brighter. A blast of white light tore through the tree lean outside. The cabin door blew off its hinges, crashed into the wall, and splitting sunlight poured in like a blade. Figures stepped into the clearing, wolves cloaked in shimmering gold energy, their eyes glowing amber. Light wolves. Royal guards from the Dawn Pack. Leonardo inhaled sharply. They shouldn't be here. The leading wolf shifted into human form, a tall woman with hair like white flames and a presence that radiated authority. "Rogue Leonardo," she said. "Step aside." Leonardo bristled. "She's under my protection." "She's under threat," the woman countered. "And the alpha of the Dawn Pack commands her surrender." My breath hitched. "Surrender?" She turned her gaze to me. "You carry a shadow curse. A prophecy tied to destruction. You must be contained before war erupts." Leonardo positioned himself in front of me. "They're not taking you." A wolf behind her growled. "Move aside, stray." Leonardo's eyes flashed gold. His voice deepened. "Try me." The woman lifted her hand, and the air crackled with stored light. "Do not make this difficult. The safety of the realms requires her confinement." "The realms?" Leonardo snapped. "Or your fear of the Shadow Alpha?" The woman's jaw hardened. "The Shadow Alpha has already begun mobilizing. His wolves gather at the border of both realms. Shadow creatures moved across 3 territories last night. This is war." The ground trembled beneath us, as if agreeing. I stepped forward, ignoring Leonardo's attempt to hold me back. "I never asked for any of this. I never wanted to be part of your war." The woman softened barely. "Fate doesn't consider desire. Only power." Leonardo growled low. "You're not taking her." "You cannot protect her alone," the woman said. "And you cannot protect yourselves if the Shadow King is rising." A shockwave burst through the trees as if summoned by her words. A massive shadow exploded upward in the distance, towering, spiraling, alive. The Shadow Realm had breached the edge of the forest. The woman's eyes widened. "He's crossing." "No," I whispered as a scream ripped across the sky. "He's declaring war." The light wolves shifted instantly, snarling as beams of white fire erupted from their bodies. Leonardo pushed me toward the back of the cabin. "Run." The shadows around my feet surged violently, rising like black flames. "I can't run." Leonardo grabbed my face with both hands. "I will not lose you to them." Light wolves clashed with shadow beasts outside, white and black spirals tearing through the clearing in violent arcs. The sky darkened as the barrier between realms tore wider. A wolf screamed. A shadow split open the earth. And my shadow began to change. It expanded upward, forming a towering silhouette behind me, larger than before, more defined, more monstrous. Its eyes opened, glowing with the Alpha's silver fire. Leonardo's grip tightened. "Seraphina." The woman's voice thundered behind us. "Contain her shadow." The light wolves surged forward. Leonardo stood between us and an entire army, ready to die for me. But the truth hit me like a blade. If I didn't control my shadow now, both packs would be slaughtered. My shadow's mouth opened in a silent scream, preparing to attack everything, everyone. I dug my fingers into the pendant around my neck. I forced myself inward, deeper, past fear, past pain, past the prophecy trying to crush me. I reached for the part of me that was shadow-born. Born of 2 worlds. Born of war and bridge alike. The pendant blazed. My shadow froze mid-strike. It turned to look at me waiting, trembling. I whispered one word, not loud but laced with truth. "Submit." The realm shuddered. The shadow bowed. Light wolves stopped mid-attack. Leonardo exhaled a broken breath. But the victory was short-lived. Because as my shadow lowered itself, a massive darkness formed behind it, bigger, denser, dripping with silver fire. The Shadow Alpha stepped into the clearing. His wolf form towered over the trees. His voice slid across the air with devastating certainty. "She is mine." And the war truly began. The night began like a slow exhale, the kind that melts the last edge of light into darkness. I stood in the clearing behind the Shadow Fortress, the cold earth under my feet humming with a pulse I had learned to recognize as the realm's heartbeat. Leonardo watched me from a distance, arms folded, posture rigid, shadows stretching behind him like a silent sentinel. But mine did not follow. I felt it before I saw it. A tug, subtle but unmistakable, as though something behind me wanted to step forward when I stayed still. I inhaled sharply. My heartbeat stumbled. The torchlight flickered around me, and that flickering carved out the shape of my shadow, except it didn't mirror my body. My arms remained at my sides, yet the shadow's arms rose, slow and deliberate, as though reaching toward the sky. Every hair on my body lifted. Leonardo moved toward me instantly, the air shifting with his power. "Seraphina," he warned, voice low, edged with something that felt like conflict and fear fused into one. The ground beneath me seemed to throb, sending ripples into my legs. Then my shadow tilted its head to the right, something I absolutely had not done. I whispered, "It's happening again." The shadow moved faster this time, twisting into a shape I didn't understand. Longer fingers. Sharper angles. The outline of a figure that wasn't mine. It stretched across the clearing like a beast waking up after centuries of sleep. A gust of wind swept through, carrying with it the thick, metallic scent of the realm. Leonardo reached me, his hand steady as it closed around my wrist. "Stay with me. Don't let it pull you." "It's not listening," I breathed. My shadow surged forward, not on the ground, but up, peeling itself away from the earth until it rose like smoke, forming a living silhouette. Every part of me reacted with instinctive terror, yet beneath it was a strange ache, an odd familiarity that felt like déjà vu laced with dread. Leonardo stepped in front of me, his massive frame blocking the creature. His own shadow expanded behind him, responding to his command, forming the defensive shape of a wolf with glowing silver eyes. The sight was breathtaking. A shadow alpha wielding his realm-born power without hesitation. My shadow lunged. It was not physical, but it hit with force, a wave of dark energy that clashed against Leonardo's shield. The collision crackled through the clearing like thunder trapped underground. Leonardo grunted, bracing himself, jaw set with determination. "Your shadow recognizes you," he said through clenched teeth. "But it doesn't obey you. Not yet." The idea of a part of me acting without my consent made my stomach twist. I whispered, "Make it stop." Leonardo's eyes softened, but only for a heartbeat. Then he lifted his hand and sliced through the air with an alpha command. The realm responded instantly. A surge of darkness wrapped around the rogue shadow, pulling it down, forcing it to flatten beneath me again. The shadow trembled, twitched, then stilled. The clearing exhaled with me. Leonardo turned, cupping my face gently but firmly. "Seraphina, this thing isn't just mimicking. It's evolving." I swallowed. Into what? His gaze held a truth he had been carrying alone. Into its own being. A chill traced my spine. And yet, part of me knew. The rest of the night passed in a haze of training attempts, mistakes, and Leonardo watching me with that rare mixture of fear and fascination. I felt the tug of my shadow beneath my feet, like a restless animal pacing its cage, waiting for its next chance to escape. When Leonardo walked me back to my chamber, the moonlight spilling across the stone corridor, he paused at my door. There was something in his gaze, something unguarded, heavy, and burning. "You're changing," he said softly. "Every moment you remain here, your connection to the shadow deepens. And I don't know if that means salvation or danger." I stepped closer, breath catching. "Are you afraid of me?" His throat worked. "I'm afraid for you." For the first time, I saw the truth in him, not the alpha, not the warrior, not the realm's ruler. Just Leonardo. A man bound to me by a destiny neither of us asked for. He reached for my hand slowly, brushing his fingertips against my skin, a silent bow layered with warmth and something deeper. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we go farther. Your shadow has only revealed its beginning." He left with shadows folding behind him, and I lay awake long after, my own shadow stretching under the moonlight curled at the foot of my bed like a creature waiting, breathing, learning, and whispering in the dark. Dawn in the shadow realm didn't come with sunlight. It came with a faint silver glow that seeped from the stones underfoot, like the world itself had its own bloodstream. Leonardo led me through the fortress corridors, the air cool and tinged with something ancient. "Today," he said, "you'll see what the realm tried to hide from you." There was weight in his tone, strategic, deliberate. Something inside me braced. We entered a chamber I had never seen, its walls covered with obsidian panels etched in glowing runes. In the center rested a circular platform, carved with symbols that pulsed like living veins. Leonardo stepped onto it, pulling me with him. The runes flared. The world shifted. Shadows peeled away like curtains, revealing a place suspended between realms, a memory hollow, he called it, where time held its breath. Mist curled around us, thick enough to touch. Shapes flickered inside it, faint outlines of wolves, warriors, and figures with eyes like stars drowned in ink. "Watch," Leonardo murmured. The mist solidified into a vision. A woman stood at the center, cloaked in black silk that seemed woven from night itself. Her hair spilled like ink down her back, and her eyes, her eyes, glowed with the same silver as the realm's pulse. Her shadow towered behind her, not mimicking her shape, but towering over her like a guardian, wings spread wide. A prophecy whispered across the hollow. "Child born with the wandering shadow shall rise between realms. With one breath, she frees. With one breath, she destroys." My chest tightened. "Is that?" "Yes," Leonardo said. "Your mother." The word cut through me with the force of a dozen truths. The woman in the vision turned, as though sensing us through time. Her lips moved silently, but her shadow spoke instead, its voice a low hum vibrating through the hollow. "The child will bring balance or ruin, light or annihilation. Her shadow is not bound to her. It is born with its own hunger." The vision warped, shifting violently. A battlefield erupted around us, light wolves clashing against shadow wolves. Lightning from the upper realm crashed against streams of darkness pouring from the ground. Screams echoed, muted yet sharp enough to pierce. "This is the warrior birth-tipped," Leonardo said quietly. "This is why both realms fear you. Fear me. Or need me." The mist trembled and then snapped into another scene. An infant, me wrapped in a cloth of shadow and light. My mother held me close, her eyes blazing with devotion and terror. Her shadow moved on its own, curling protectively around us before stretching toward an unseen enemy. Leonardo's voice lowered. "Your mother fled with you to the light realm because your shadow tried to consume you minutes after you were born. It wasn't violence. It was instinct. It believed you belonged to the realm entirely." The hollow dimmed, returning us to the chamber. My legs felt unsteady. "Why show me this now?" "Because your shadow's awakening follows the prophecy's timeline," he said. "And because I can't protect you from something you don't understand." I looked at him then, not as Alpha, but as the man who had watched my shadow attack him the night before and still stood by me. "What happens if the prophecy is true?" His eyes met mine with a gravity that tore through every defense I had. "Then you won't face it alone. Even if the realms burn." Something warm rose inside me, soft but powerful, pulling me toward him. He didn't move, yet the space between us tightened, drawn by something deeper than fate. But before the moment could settle, the floor trembled. A cold wind swept through the chamber. My shadow ripped itself from the ground. It rose taller than before, darker, shaped like a version of me I did not recognize, feral, regal, ancient. The runes around us flared violently. Leonardo stepped in front of me instantly, power rolling off him like a storm. The shadow lifted a hand toward him, fingers warped like smoke sharpened into claws. But then it paused. And slowly, its gaze shifted to me. It reached out, not to strike, but to touch my face, mirroring Leonardo's gesture the night before. The chamber gasped with silence. Something passed between me and the shadow. A spark. A memory. A tether reconnecting after years of strain. Leonardo's voice broke through it, deep and resonant. "Seraphina, your shadow isn't your enemy." The shadow turned its head sharply, almost offended. Then it dissolved into the floor, leaving only a soft echo, a whisper that chilled the air. "Soon." Leonardo exhaled, tension coiled through every muscle. "It's accelerating. The prophecy is no longer distant, it's unfolding." I stared at the place where my shadow had vanished, feeling its breath inside my bones. The prophecy wasn't waiting for me. It was coming. And what it would make of me was no longer a question. but a countdown. Control. Leonardo said it like a mandate carved into the bones of the realm, a principle older than the war, older than shadows, older than every prophecy that threatened to tear my life apart. The training ground lay silent around us, a vast expanse of obsidian earth that shimmered faintly under the realm's silver glow. No guards. No wolves. No distractions. Only the two of us, the shifting darkness beneath my feet, and the quiet pressure of a destiny I could neither refuse nor fully comprehend. He stood across from me, posture steady and carved from discipline. "Your shadow responds to instinct," he said. "You must sharpen your instinct into command. The more you hesitate, the more it adapts without you." I breathed deeply, letting the air of the realm settle in my lungs, cool, metallic, laced with something that always felt like the edge of a storm. My shadow stretched behind me, long and restless, as though anticipating what was coming. There was a thrum beneath my skin, a pulse I felt more acutely with each passing day. Leonardo moved first. Not an attack. A provocation. He extended his hand and sent a ripple of darkness toward me. It wasn't meant to harm, just to unsettle. I felt my shadow twitch, rise, mimic the tension building inside me. "Steady," he murmured. I anchored my feet into the obsidian earth and pulled the energy inward. My shadow jerked violently, resisting, as though the realm itself whispered that it belonged to no one, not even me. Its fingers warped into claws. Its head lifted. Its outline wavered like smoke fighting to become flame. Leonardo stepped closer. His presence steadied the air between us. "Engage it. Give it direction." I lifted my hand. My shadow did not. Instead, it surged sideways like a creature lunging for freedom, slamming into a pillar of stone and shattering the surface. Dust exploded around us. The ground vibrated under the force of it. My body flinched from the impact even though it had not touched me physically. Leonardo whispered my name like a tether. "Seraphina. Don't let it dictate the field." He approached slowly, his steps precise, the power around him thickening. The shadow responded to him with agitation. It rose higher, taking form, my form, but distorted. Taller. Leaner. Its edges sharpened into jagged silhouettes. A version of me sculpted by fear, hunger, and ancient instinct. Leonardo's voice thinned into authority. "Contain it. Contain." I repeated the word inside my mind, pressing it into the racing storm of energy surging through me. I inhaled deeply and stepped toward the shadow. Immediately it lashed out. A wave of cold darkness slammed toward me, but Leonardo intercepted it with a sweep of his arm. His power collided with it in a shockwave that rattled my bones. He moved with precision, protective but unyielding, controlled yet fierce. "This is yours to command," he said sharply. "Not mine." I nodded, grounding myself. The ground beneath me pulsed again. My shadow lifted, ready to strike. I reached for it mentally, instinctively, connecting with the pulse beneath my ribs. A memory flared, the vision of my mother in the prophecy hollow, her shadow towering behind her like a warrior forged of pure darkness. I channeled that memory, that presence, that strength. My voice slipped out steady. "Stand down." The shadow froze. Shock rippled through me. For the first time, it obeyed without force, only intention. Leonardo's eyes widened with a rare trace of awe. Again, I exhaled and spread my fingers. My shadow mirrored the motion perfectly this time, lowering its arm slowly. The connection felt fragile, like holding a wild creature by the thinnest leash, but it held. A warmth bloomed in my chest. For the first time since entering the realm, I felt like the prophecy wasn't devouring me, I was stepping into it. Leonardo approached, stopping just a breath away. "That is control," he murmured. "Raw, unrefined, but yours." The pride in his tone sparked something deep inside me, something warm, powerful, steady. But the moment shattered when the alarm howl ripped across the realm. A throaty, war-torn cry. One used only for danger. Leonardo stiffened. That came from the lower village. Before I could react, my shadow darted forward. Not toward the village, toward a cluster of wolves rushing in from the edge of the clearing. Their faces held fear, panic. And when they saw me, that fear sharpened into something twisted. "She can't control it," a wolf shouted. "Get the alpha away from her before it attacks." But the shadow moved faster. In a split second, it expanded, lashing out with tendrils of darkness. One wolf was thrown backward. Another stumbled as the ground beneath him cracked open. It wasn't killing, but it wasn't harmless either. My pulse spiked. "Stop." The shadow didn't hear me. Leonardo stepped between the wolves and the darkness, unleashing a blast of his own power that pushed my shadow back. His command hit the air like thunder. "Seraphina, find it." Panic surged through me, but I channeled everything I had, anger, fear, determination, into the bond thrumming between us. "Return," I whispered, voice trembling. The shadow hesitated, twitched, then snapped back to my feet, flattening into its normal shape. The clearing went silent. The wolves stared at me with wide, stunned eyes. Leonardo turned slowly, his expression unreadable, but the tension in his jaw told me everything. This wasn't victory. Not yet. This was the beginning of the Shadow's rebellion. And the realm had just witnessed it. The village lay in ruins by the time Leonardo and I reached it. The Shadow Realm's lower settlement was built from stone and lacquered wood, illuminated by the eternal silver glow woven into the architecture. But now that glow flickered, stuttering like a dying heartbeat. Screams echoed faintly in the distance. Wolves rushed through the shattered streets, dragging the injured to safety. Dust floated in the air like smoke from a collapsing world. Leonardo strode ahead of me, issuing orders with the calm ferocity of an alpha who had seen far too many battles. His power wrapped the village like a shield, spreading from him in waves of silver-black protection. But the tension in his shoulders betrayed a fear he refused to say aloud. This attack wasn't from the light wolves. It wasn't an enemy invasion. It was my shadow. Not the part one contained. The part that escaped. I felt it the moment we arrived, the tugging ache under my ribs, like something missing, something carving distance between us. A hollow where a piece of me had ripped free. Leonardo noticed my discomfort. "Tell me what it feels like." "A pull," I said quietly. "Like something is trying to return to me, or drag me to it." He nodded once. "Then we find it." We moved deeper into the village. A lone wolf elder rushed up to us, eyes wide with terror. Alpha, there was, a creature. A shadow creature. It tore through the square. It didn't kill, but it struck everyone who tried to stop it. I swallowed hard. My shadow didn't want to kill. It was reacting. The elder's gaze hardened. Reacting or not, it attacked innocence. That makes it dangerous. Leonardo stepped forward, voice sharp. "Watch your tone." But he didn't deny the accusation. Guilt twisted through me as we pressed on. My shadow had lashed out earlier, but that was under pressure, under confusion. This felt intentional. Purposeful. A dark echo trying to define itself. We reached the square. The destruction stole my breath. Stone pillars cracked down the middle. Market stalls torn apart. The glowing runic lanterns extinguished. The air thick with fear. And in the center, my shadow. Not lying flat. Not tethered to me. Standing upright like a living figure woven of pure darkness. It turned when I approached, its form rippling as though recognizing its origin. Behind it, several wolves lay injured but conscious, staring at me with a mixture of horror and desperate hope. Leonardo stepped beside me. His presence shielded me even as he prepared for battle. The shadow tilted its head. Then it lunged. Not at the wolves. At a child. A young wolf pup stumbled near the ruins, unaware of the danger. The shadow raced toward her, darkness spiraling into sharpened tendrils. My scream caught in my throat. Leonardo reacted instantly. He launched himself forward and threw a wall of raw alpha power between the child and the shadow. The collision blasted through the square. Stone shattered. Dust erupted. But the shadow kept pushing. Leonardo grunted, his muscles straining, his energy crackling along the barrier. The force of it was overwhelming. I felt it tear through my connection, felt it wrench at something inside me. He shouted without looking back, voice fractured. "Seraphina, find it." I stepped forward, pulse hammering in my ears. My shadow snarled, a sound like metal scraping through a storm. I reached for it. The tether throbbed. The bond strained. "Return," I whispered. The shadow didn't move. I stepped closer, tears stinging my eyes. "Return to me." Darkness swirled. A violent pull ripped through my chest. The shadow twisted, torn between instinct and command. Then, with one final lash of defiance, it broke away from Leonardo's barrier, turned toward me, and slammed back into the ground beneath my feet. My knees buckled. Pain roared through my body, not physical but spiritual, like swallowing an entire storm. Leonardo caught me before I fell. His arms locked around me, grounding me, anchoring me through the whirlpool of energy ripping through my veins. The wolves stared in stunned silence. Leonardo breathed beside my ear, voice threaded with both relief and fear. "This is escalating faster than I anticipated." My body trembled as the last remnants of the shadow settled into place. Every heartbeat echoed with fury, hunger, power I had not learned to wield. He pressed his forehead to mine, not out of affection but urgency. If we don't gain full control soon, the next time it breaks free, the damage will be far worse. The prophecy's weight settled around us like a cage. "Destroy both realms." The words haunted the air between us. Leonardo lifted my chin gently, his eyes fierce, unwavering, carrying a vow he had no reason to make, but every reason to cling to. "We master this. Together. Before the realms decide your fate for you." And in that shattered square, surrounded by fear and broken stone, I realized the truth pulsing through my veins. My shadow wasn't the only thing rebelling. Destiny itself was shifting. The days after the village attack bled into one another like ink seeping through thin fabric, staining everything it touched. I felt the shift inside me constantly, my shadow pressing against the edges of my skin, restless, hungry, whispering with a consciousness that grew more defined each hour. The realm responded to its awakening. The air around me pulsed with wariness, as though the stones themselves monitored every one of my breaths. Leonardo didn't leave my side. He led me through the inner chambers of the fortress, deeper than any part one had seen, through narrow halls carved with runes older than the wolves, older than the realm itself. We passed dormant lanterns that flickered awake at our presence, casting ribbons of silver light that danced over the walls. The atmosphere thickened the farther we descended, pressing against my lungs with ancient power. At last, we reached a circular chamber built entirely of black stone. It hummed with energy, vibrating faintly beneath my feet. Leonardo stopped in the doorway, studying me with that tight, controlled expression he wore whenever the shadow acted unpredictably. "This place is where shadow alphas undergo their binding rituals," he said. "It carves obedience into the wildest of forces. It's the only place strong enough to hold your shadow long enough for you to anchor it." The weight of his words settled like cold metal in my stomach. Binding. Obedience. Anchor. A process older than me, older than everything I understood. My fingers trembled despite my resolve. Leonardo stepped closer, lowering his voice. "This is your will versus its will. You don't conquer it with fear. Fear gives it ground. It must be done with certainty." I nodded, though my pulse stuttered in my throat. The chamber called to me. Energy rippled through my spine, awakening the presence curled inside my silhouette. My shadow stretched across the stone floor, growing longer, darker, thicker. Its outline arched like a creature tasting freedom. Leonardo moved behind me, his warmth settling across my back like a steady barrier. His voice resonated with controlled command. "Step into the center." I walked toward the heart of the chamber. As soon as my foot touched the innermost circle, the runes ignited around me in a blinding burst of silver fire. The air roared and wind spiraled upward, dragging shadows into a cyclone. My own shadow peeled itself free, straightening, rising. taking on a fully formed figure that mirrored me yet towered taller, darker, eyes glowing like carved spheres of smoke. I felt its pull instantly, a gravitational drag that tugged at the deepest parts of my spirit. And then the chamber sealed around us. The ritual began. My shadow lunged. I raised my hand instinctively, and energy shot from my palm like a shockwave. The collision cracked the air with thunder. My hair whipped around my face, but I held my ground. My shadow staggered back, its form glitching like a flame caught in a storm. For the first time, it stared at me not with hostility, but with recognition. I spoke with intention, drawing on every broken piece inside me and welding them into something unshakable. You're mine. The shadow thrust forward again, but its movements lacked the same dominance. The tether between us vibrated like a live wire, buzzing through my veins. I stepped closer, closing the distance. My voice deepened with a certainty that felt inherited, as though my mother's blood whispered the words through me. You return when I call, I said. You rise when I rise. You rest when I rest. My shadow froze, trembling like a beast torn between instinct and command. Leonardo's voice carried through the storm around me. Finish it, Seraphina. Claim it. My palm pressed against the shadow's chest, smooth like smoke yet solid beneath my touch. The darkness rippled, convulsing, shrinking into itself. It fought for a heartbeat longer. A final act of rebellion. A last scream of independence. Then it surrendered. The figure collapsed into me in a surge of black fire, merging with my body so violently that I gasped and fell to my knees. Heat and cold tore through every inch of my nerves. My breath shattered. My heartbeat thrashed. Leonardo reached me as the chamber dimmed. He gathered me in his arms, holding me firmly against his chest, grounding my trembling body with the weight of his presence. It's bound, he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. You anchored it. Tears pricked the edges of my vision, not from weakness, but relief. The storm inside me finally quieted. My shadow lay still beneath me, obedient for the first time in my life. But one truth settled with a heavy, chilling imprint. This was only the beginning. There was always a price for power like this. And the realm had begun to collect. The ritual chamber lingered in my bones long after we left it. Even the air in the fortress felt sharper, slicing through the fog that had surrounded my thoughts since I arrived in the shadow realm. My shadow obeyed now, moving with the same rhythm as my breath, but beneath its compliance pulsed a deeper truth. It knew more than I did. It had lived through memories I hadn't yet touched. It held secrets I hadn't asked for. And one of those secrets waited for me in Leonardo's private council room. The space was shaped like a ring, with towering pillars carved from obsidian. Maps of the two realms flickered along the walls, shadows drawn against light, light clashing with darkness. Leonardo stood beside the largest map table, deep in conversation with Elder Kalon, the realm's ancient advisor. Their voices dropped to silence when I entered. Kalon's gaze settled on me with unusual softness. It is time. Leonardo nodded, folding his arms. She must hear the truth directly. My pulse slowed, every sense sharpening. Kalon motioned toward a sealed scroll resting on the table. Your mother left this for you the night she fled into the light realm. It was intended to be opened only after your shadow awakened. Something inside me cracked open. My feet carried me forward before my mind caught up. Leonardo watched me with an expression that blended caution with regret. He knew what was inside that scroll. And he hadn't told me. My fingers trembled as I broke the wax seal. The scroll unfurled with a whisper. My mother's handwriting swept across the parchment in elegant strokes, so familiar it made my throat tighten. I read her words aloud, the room falling silent around me. My Seraphina. If you hold this, then the shadow in you has recognized itself, and you have stepped into the realm you were born to inherit. You are not like the wolves who fear the dark, nor the creatures who worship it. You are born from both worlds and destined for neither. My heart hammered. Leonardo exhaled slowly. The sound held sorrow. I kept reading. I am of the shadow realm. Your father was of the light realm. Our union was forbidden, for a prophecy warned that the child of shadow and light would break the border between realms and bind them again in fire. The parchment trembled between my hands. Leonardo stepped closer. Seraphina. I shook my head and continued. The Shadow King hunted me from the moment he learned I carried you. He wanted the power in your blood. Your father died protecting us. I ran with you to the light realm, knowing you would never be safe, but praying the realms would forget. They did not. Pain washed through me, sharp and relentless. The words blurred, but I forced myself onward. When your shadow acts without restraint, it is not disobedience. It is legacy. And when the war begins, as it surely will, you will be the bridge the prophecy speaks of. Only you can decide whether that bridge carries hope or destruction. The scroll slipped from my fingers. My breath thinned as a cold realization rose like a tide inside me. I was the child both realms feared. Not because of what I could do, but because of what I was. A hybrid. A forbidden heir. A living prophecy. Leonardo reached for me carefully as though afraid I might shatter. His hand touched my arm, steadying me, but the truth tore through his expression. I wanted to tell you, but the elders demanded proof before revealing anything that could destabilize the realm. Your mother's bloodline, it changes everything. He stepped closer until the space between us hummed with the tension of withheld words. You aren't just tied to this realm, Seraphina. You are tied to both. And, because of that, the war will seek you first. My chest tightened. I didn't ask for any of this. His voice softened, deepening into something that resonated through the air around us. Neither did your mother. Neither did your father. Destiny rarely asks permission. The room dimmed, the walls flickering with the shifting map lights. Outside, a distant horn sounded, the call of approaching conflict. The two realms had begun to stir, sensing their prophecy awakening. Leonardo moved closer, his forehead pressing lightly against mine, grounding me in a world that suddenly felt too vast and too fragile. You survived the binding, he murmured. You can survive this truth. But survival no longer felt like the challenge. The challenge was the war my bloodline had ignited long before I took my first breath. And now that I knew the truth, the shadow inside me stretched with new understanding, its presence no longer wild, just waiting. Waiting for the moment fate demanded it rise. The first sign of war wasn't the roar of beasts or the crackle of burning forests. It was silence, an unnatural, suspended quiet that swept across the horizon the moment the veil between realms thinned. The air tasted metallic, like the world was bracing itself. My own shadow rippled at my feet, restless, as if even it sensed what was coming. I stood at the ridge overlooking the valley of pale winds, my heart hammering beneath my ribs. The last few days had been a storm of revelations. My mother, my real mother, had come from Leonardo's realm. She had walked between light and shadow, carrying secrets that had somehow landed directly in my blood. I didn't know what fate she'd wanted for me, but surely not this. Two worlds sharpening weapons for a fight over my existence. Below me, the armies gathered. On one side, the light wolves massive, for like silver flames, eyes burning with luminous resolve. On the other, the shadow wolves darker than midnight storms, bodies leaking flickers of mist as if made of something not entirely physical. They moved silently, no breath, no snarl, nothing. Their power was the quiet kind, the kind that devours instead of strikes. Leonardo appeared beside me without warning. His presence kept me grounded. His aura, wild, heavy with alpha command, settled around me like a mantle. I drew in a breath and forced myself to look at him. This is happening because of me, I whispered. His jaw flexed. This is happening because of prophecy, politics, fear, and centuries of bad choices. You are only the catalyst, not the cause. I didn't ask to be a catalyst. No one ever does. His hand brushed my back, steady and warm. The touch didn't promise comfort, it delivered strategy. Leonardo never soothed with softness, he soothed with certainty. That was why I trusted him. My shadow crawled up my leg, skittering like a restless creature. I pressed a hand over it, grounding it with will. It hissed in response, not a sound, more like a shiver of resistance. Ever since I'd learned to command it, it had grown stronger, but also bolder. Unpredictable. A double-edged weapon that answered to me only when it wished. Leonardo's gaze sharpened. Can you control it today? I have to. The truth was harsher. I didn't know. A ripple tore across the sky, a violent seam of light and dark. The war horn of the light wolves echoed, shaking the valley floor. The shadow wolves responded with a low, vibrating hum that rattled my bones. The first clash came like lightning striking earth. Wolves surged forward, silver crashing against black, the impact sending tremors through the realm. I watched as bodies collided, each side trying to overpower the other, ancient grudges erupting into brutal choreography. Yet I couldn't let myself look away. These wolves weren't monsters, they were lives. Families. Packs. They were fighting for survival, mine included. Leonardo shifted, his form bursting into enormous shadowed strength. Muscles stretched, bones cracked, power radiating from him like a tidal wave. His wolf, towering, dark, eyes burning like dying stars, took the field with a single command howl. I felt the vibration in my spine. Leonardo didn't fight to dominate, he fought to prevent slaughter. His movements were purposeful, strategic, avoiding killing blows while deflecting attacks aimed at vulnerable wolves on both sides. Even in war, he sought balance. That was who he was. A light wolf lunged at a young shadow wolf who struggled to keep up. Instinct overtook me. I sprinted into the chaos, my limbs pumping, breath ragged. Before the light wolf struck, my shadow whipped forward, stretching like a spear of ink and shoving the attacker away. The young shadow wolf bolted, escaping. Stay back. Leonardo's voice thundered through our mental link. I can't. I felt, rather than saw, his frustration. A blaze of silver fire streaked toward me. I dodged, but the explosion rattled my skull. Dust rose in clouds as combat thickened around me. Every thud of paws, every sharp cry, every flash of light and darkness carved itself into my mind. My shadow suddenly stretched upward, tall as a mountain, tangling itself into the limbs of a light wolf. It wasn't protecting me, it was lashing out. Rage radiated from it, an echo of something ancient. No, I whispered, trying to reel it back. Not like this. It ignored me. Leonardo leapt between the shadow and its target, his massive wolf form blocking the blow. The moment he touched my shadow, his energy faltered, flickering. I felt it like a punch to the lungs. He staggered. My heart dropped. Leonardo. He forced himself upright, but I could see it, my shadow was drawing from him. Feeding on him. The prophecy whispered in my mind, she can destroy both realms. Not because of me. Because of the thing attached to me. No more. I stepped forward and slammed my palm onto the ground. The effort drained me instantly. Darkness spiraled from my fingertips, swirling until it wrapped around its own reflection, my rebellious shadow. I wrenched its movements back into my body with raw will. The realm shook. My vision darkened at the edges. Leonardo shifted back into human form, panting, sweat slicking his skin even as his power flickered unsteadily. He strode toward me, grabbing my shoulders. You can't let it fight on its own. I didn't, I said weakly. Not anymore. The armies around us slowed, watching, the valley holding its breath. Both sides realized the same truth. This conflict would never resolve through claws and fury. Not while the prophecy hovered over me. The world went quiet. Leonardo held my gaze. You are the bridge, Seraphina. You are meant to end this, not by force, by truth. A tremor shook the ground beneath us. The seal between realms pulsed with rising tension. War was just the beginning. Something older was waking. I lifted my chin and stepped forward, projecting my voice across the valley. I am done running. I am done hiding from shadows and bloodlines and destinies written in fear. This war ends with me. My shadow rose behind me, no longer wild, but waiting. Two realms aligned in wary silence. The horizon rumbled. This was only the dawn. And the deeper storm was coming. The valley still smelled of battle, charred earth, torn soil, the metallic tang of exertion, but the fighting had paused, suspended by something heavier than fear. Every wolf, light and shadow, watched me as if I were the hinge of their fate. Maybe I was. The Shadow Council appeared first, tall robed figures with eyes glowing faint electric blue beneath hoods woven from darkness. They materialized like smoke gaining form, their presence chilling the air. On the opposite side, the elders of the Light Wolves stepped forward, their robes white as frost, staffs carved with runes that shimmered faintly. Between them stood Leonardo, my anchor, my storm. He looked exhausted but unbroken, his power simmering beneath his skin like volcanic pressure. He was the alpha of a realm built from darkness, yet he carried himself like he was made of starlight. His gaze found mine, and something steadied inside me. The elders were the first to speak. The Cursed One has revealed her nature. Cursed One. Again. I straightened. My name is Seraphina. The nearest elder met my gaze stiffly. Your birth threatens to unravel what little harmony we have maintained. It was never harmony, Leonardo said coldly. It was avoidance. A murmur rolled through both sides. The lead shadow counselor stepped forward. The child of two realms should have been impossible. And yet here she stands. Child of two realms. The truth sat heavily in my chest. My mother had crossed from the shadow realm into the light. She had fallen in love with my father, a light wolf, bridging worlds in a time when even speaking to the opposite side could get someone cast out. She had run, hidden, tried to protect me. The curse had grown with me, shaping my shadow into something alive. And now the realms blamed each other for what I represented. A breach. A risk. A prophecy. A possibility. Leonardo touched my arm. Let them finish. Then speak your truth. I nodded, though part of me wanted to scream. Not because they feared me, but because no one had ever asked whether I feared what was happening to me. I did. I feared the shadow that writhed beneath my skin. I feared the prophecy carved into my fate. But more than anything, I feared what would happen to these realms if I didn't become what I was meant to be. The Light Elder raised his staff. We cannot allow the shadow touch to remain unbound. Her shadow threatens innocence. A flash of guilt stabbed me. My shadow had attacked. Wolves had been hurt. Some nearly killed. But binding me? Binding my shadow? That was a slow execution. Leonardo's jaw tightened. Her shadow is rebelling because both sides are forcing her into a war she didn't choose. Control is earned, not imposed. You speak as though she belongs to you, one elder said sharply. Leonardo stepped forward, authority pouring from him like thunder. She belongs to no one. Not even me. The whole valley froze. He looked at me then, raw honesty, no shields. But I choose her. That is different. My breath hitched. The realm held still. The shadow counselor observed us. Whether chosen or not, she is a bridge. And bridges break under weight. I exhaled slowly. Then stop piling your fears on me. Silence fell, startled. I stepped between the two factions. My shadow followed like a silent guardian, taller now, more defined. Its edges blurred like flames licking the air. You all fear what I could become. Destroyer. Catalyst. Weapon. My voice deepened as something ancient stirred inside me. But none of you have tried to see what else I could be. The valley brightened and darkened at once, light and shadow warring around my body. I am done choosing sides. I am both. And neither. Leonardo's voice slid into my mind, steady as a heartbeat. Claim it, Seraphina. So I did. My shadow curled around my wrist, pulsing with my heartbeat instead of resisting it. The elders flinched. The council leaned in. I am the bridge, I said, and I will not break. Light flared. Shadow surged. They collided around me, swirling in spirals until they fused into a single energy, dark luminescence, glowing ink. Gasps erupted across the valley. The elders whispered. The council stepped back. Leonardo smiled, small but fierce. He felt it too. My shadow settled behind me like wings. I stood taller, stronger, aligned. The shadow counselor bowed his head. The war pauses today. The realms will hear your terms. I blinked. My terms. The Light Elder lowered his staff. Speak, Bridgeborn. I inhaled the sharp scent of wind and power. The moment weighed more heavily than any battle. My terms are simple, I said. This war ends. Now. Both realms stand down until the prophecy is understood, not feared. And if the prophecy demands destruction, an elder asked. Leonardo stepped beside me. His shadow rose behind him like a second alpha. Then we rewrite it. A ripple of shock went through both sides. Rewrite prophecy. Rewrite fate. Rewrite the fracture between realms. The counselor nodded slowly. We will convene. The elders mirrored the gesture. Light and shadow parted like waves, leaving a path between them, one only I could walk. Leonardo turned to me when they dispersed. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, his touch both warm and grounding. You did more than stop a war, he murmured. You made two realms listen. I'm terrified, I whispered. So am I. He leaned closer, energy sparking between us like magnetic gravity. But together, we're unstoppable. My shadow rose behind us, no longer rebellious, simply waiting. Two realms watched from afar. Two fates hovered at the brink. And I finally stepped into the role the prophecy had carved for me. Not destroyer. Not weapon. Not curse. Bridge. The storm was still coming. But now I would meet it standing tall, light on one side, shadow on the other, Leonardo at my back, and my own power finally aligning with my will. The worlds didn't know it yet, but this was the moment they began to change. Dawn never came to the shadow realm the way it did in the world of light. Here, morning was a muted silver glow, a quiet unveiling instead of a blaze. On this particular morning, that delicate glow barely touched the edges of my vision. I lay on a stone bed draped in wolf pelts, my limbs heavy, my magic drained, my breath thin. Leonardo sat beside me. His posture was rigid. His hair looked slightly damp, like he'd run a hand through it 100 times. Shadows clung to the edges of his silhouette, but they seemed dimmer, fainter, as if the realm itself had taken something back from him. I pushed myself upright slowly. You look pale. He gave a tired smile. You're one to talk. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. My memory rushed back. The shadow's attack, the collapse, the moment Leonardo threw himself between me and the creature I couldn't control. I remembered the flash of his power as he tore at it. I remembered the moment it touched him, leeching something essential. I swallowed hard. What did it take from you? His gaze flicked away. Leonardo. He exhaled, a slow, weighted release. A piece of my alpha power. I stared at him, disbelief knotting my chest. You can't be serious. I didn't have time to think. It was going to consume you. I intervened. You gave it your power? My voice broke. For me, he didn't deny it. He simply watched me with that quiet, steady intensity that always unraveled me. Seraphina, he said inside my mind. You matter more than my rank. I shook my head, heart pounding. Leonardo, your power is tied to your realm. Without it, I didn't lose everything, he cut in gently. But I gave enough that the realm felt it. I clenched my fists in the pelts. The council will blame me. They already do. His honesty sliced through the room like a blade. I lowered my gaze. I never wanted you to sacrifice for me. Then you don't understand what you are to me. He reached for me, brushing his thumb over my lower lip. The touch was tender, but there was a gravity behind it, a silent, aching truth. I would give far more, he whispered, if it meant you survived. Emotion stormed through me, relief, anger, devotion, fear. A swirl so intense I could barely breathe. I pressed my forehead against his chest. His scent, wild earth, cold night, steady strength, wrapped around me. His heartbeat thudded strong, but slower than usual. Weaker. My shadow stirred inside me, sensing his nearness. But instead of reaching for him, it curled inward, as if finally recognizing him as part of me. Leonardo's arm encircled my waist, his touch protective but not possessive. We have a bigger problem. I pulled back. What? The Shadow King knows what happened. His tone hardened. He knows you bound your shadow. He knows the power inside you has awakened. And he knows I gave up part of myself to protect you. My pulse quickened. He'll come for me. Yes. And for you. Leonardo nodded once. He already is. His reach is stretching through the realm. You felt the pressure last night, didn't you? I swallowed. The air felt wrong. That was him. The king is gathering power, preparing to reclaim what he believes is his. Leonardo's jaw clenched. You. A cold dread slid down my spine. The Shadow King saw me as belonging to his throne, his prophecy, his claim. And now, after last night, my power had grown enough to threaten him. Leonardo rose to his feet. The council wants me to surrender you. My chest tightened painfully. You didn't. Seraphina, he said, voice low, I would burn every realm before I let anyone touch you. He paced the room once, tension rolling off him. But the king is making moves. He's already weakening the outer wards. If he breaks through, he'll take me and strip you for power. His voice shook with fury he rarely showed. He wants your shadow. He wants your heritage. He wants everything your mother hid. I stood, even though my legs trembled. Then we confront him. Leonardo froze. Seraphina. I'm done running. If he's coming for me, I'll meet him myself. He stepped toward me, cupping my cheek with a hand that trembled faintly, an alpha trembling. He is older than the realms. Stronger than the elders. He will try to use your shadow against you. And I'll stop him. You nearly died last night. But I didn't. He stared at me for a long moment, then something settled in his gaze. A decision. A vow. He drew me into his arms, pulling me against him until I felt his pulse against mine. If you go, he whispered into my hair, then I go with you. I wrapped my arms around him tightly, emotion burning through me like molten silver. We face him together. Always. The shadow inside me pulsed in agreement. Two realms trembled. The king stirred. And Leonard and I, broken, bound, rising, stepped into the storm that would decide everything. The path to the Shadow King was not a road, not a corridor, not anything that made sense to mortal feet. It was a living mantle of darkness that breathed beneath us, stretching itself forward only when Leonardo and I stepped in complete unity. If either of us faltered, the shadows refused to move. They demanded harmony. They demanded intention. They demanded a pair. A strange logic, considering their king fought endlessly to divide everything he touched. Leonardo kept one hand wrapped around mine, our fingers linked with a grip that held no room for separation. His touch grounded me as the air thickened with ancient pressure. Every step deeper made the realm quieter. The distant growl of wolves vanished. The whispering of spirits died. Even my shadow, so restless, paused, pressing close as though anticipating its sovereign. We reached a vast chamber carved not by stone, but by age itself. Darkness rose in layered arches, folding over one another like frozen waves. At the center sat a throne, if it could be called that. It was a towering mass sculpted from living shadow, its surface shifting like smoke trapped inside obsidian. And on that throne sat the king. He didn't look monstrous. He didn't look wild. His stillness was what terrified me most. A man-shaped eclipse with eyes like two pits of pale starlight. When he stood, the realm bent with him. Every particle of shadow leaned toward him like worship. Daughter of the Rift, he said, his voice vibrating through the chamber. You returned to me at last. Leonardo's grip on my hand tightened. I didn't come to return, I said. I came to face you. The king descended the throne steps slowly, each step leaving a ripple of darkness behind him. You wear your heritage like armor. How touching. Yet you stand before me without understanding what you are. I felt a cold coil around my spine, the familiar pulse of the shadow inside me, but I didn't let it consume my courage. You've hunted me since the day I was born. You sent your darkness after me. You tried to claim me before I even knew your name. Claim? He laughed softly. The sound made the air bend, heavy and taut. Little one, I am not claiming. I am retrieving. You are the last of my bloodline, the sole heir to my throne. My heart stuttered. That's impossible. Leonardo stepped in front of me, half-shifted, protective, furious. She belongs to no throne of yours. The king studied him with mild curiosity, as if observing a defiant spark on a dying candle. You weakened yourself for her, he said. I felt the loss ripple through the realm. Your sacrifice tasted of desperation. Leonardo didn't respond, but the tension in his shoulders sharpened. The king turned back to me. You carry the blood of a shadow queen. Your mother was my chosen successor. Your existence ensured her death. The world jolted. My throat tightened. My mother died because of me? She died because she fled with you, the king corrected. She hid you in the light realm, wrapped you in a lie, and prayed your shadow would stay dormant. Foolish woman. My pulse hammered. Images flashed through my mind, my mother's gentle hands, her constant watchfulness, her whispered warnings I never understood. Leonardo stepped closer to me, voice edged in steel. She was protecting her child. The king dismissed him with a glance. She was delaying the inevitable. You, Seraphina, are the prophecy. The shadows in the chamber thickened, swirling around me like a storm preparing to reclaim its heart. You are the destruction of both realms, he continued. Not by malice, but by nature. A being of mixed shadow and light cannot live without tearing the realms apart. Something inside me rebelled violently. You're wrong. Am I? The king lifted a hand, and my shadow peeled away from me, dragged forward like a puppet cut from its strings. I gasped as the connection stretched taut and painful. Leonardo lunged, but the king flicked a finger, trapping him in a cage of swirling black. Leonardo growled, slamming his claws into the barrier, but it didn't budge. You see, the king murmured, your shadow is not yours to command. It has always been mine. The shadow rose higher, trembling like it wanted to scream. My heart cracked at the sight. It wasn't evil. It wasn't monstrous. It was afraid. The king reached toward it, and the shadow bent, bowing. No, not bowing. Breaking. Something snapped inside me, an instinct, ancient and primal. Power surged through my veins in a wild, silver-black flash. My feet moved before thought caught up. I shoved myself between the king and my shadow, feeling the tether burn. This shadow is mine, I said, voice shaking with force I didn't recognize. You don't get to touch it. He stared at me for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Your mother said the same thing. Pain and power twisted through me, a storm of lineage and will. You killed her, I whispered. I freed her from the burden she could not bear. Rage consumed me, quiet, lethal, absolute. Leonardo roared my name inside his prison, but I barely heard him. The tether between my shadow and me pulsed once, hard enough to knock the breath from my lungs. And then, my shadow rose behind me, no longer trembling. It grew tall, solid, alive. The king's eyes widened in recognition and something like fear. You cannot fight me, he said. I stepped forward, shadow merging with my stride like a second heartbeat. I'm not fighting you. My voice thickened with something new, something inherited. I'm taking back what you stole. The king raised a wall of darkness. I plunged straight into it. For the first time, I wasn't running from my power. I was claiming it. The confrontation had begun, and there would be no turning back. The impact didn't feel like a collision. It felt like annihilation. The king's wall of shadow folded around me, swallowing sight, sound, breath. But I pushed through, forcing the tether with my shadow to flare bright as lightning. My magic ripped the darkness apart. When I emerged, the king had already shifted into his full form, an immense silhouette shaped like a wolf carved out of cosmic night. His eyes burned with void light, endless and ancient. Power radiated from him in waves that crushed the air. Leonardo's roar echoed behind me as he fought his prison, each strike weakening the barrier but not breaking it. The king lowered his massive head. You cannot win, child. I'm not a child anymore. My shadow fused to me like armor, rising with my breath, amplifying my heartbeat until my veins felt carved from starlit obsidian. For the first time, it didn't rebel. It aligned. I stepped forward. Tell me about my mother. The king stilled. You owe me that much, I said. If I'm her heir. His form shrank, folding back into humanoid shape, still towering, still sovereign, but less monstrous. Your mother, he said slowly, was the strongest bearer of shadow in 1,000 years. She was meant to inherit the throne. But then she met someone from the light realm. She chose weakness over destiny. My father. He nodded. Your mother knew the prophecy, he continued. A child born of both realms would shatter the balance. Light would clash with shadow inside the child until both realms tore apart. So she ran, I whispered. She fled because she loved you. She believed she could hide your power. But a destiny like yours cannot be hidden. My knees almost gave out. Pain anchored itself deep inside me, not because of the prophecy, but because of her sacrifice. She wasn't running from the king. She was running toward hope. Leonardo's barrier finally cracked. He burst free, shifting mid-leap and landing at my side, breath heaving, claws ready. But the moment his eyes met mine, his tension changed. He saw something different in me. Something awakened. The king noticed too. He lifted one hand. The realm trembled. The throne behind him cracked. And then it shattered. Darkness erupted like a volcano, swirling upward, forming a cyclone of pure power. It spiraled around him and then around me. The pressure intensified, pushing Leonardo backward. He tried to reach me, but the force shoved him to the edges of the chamber. Your mother's lineage awakens, the king said, voice vibrating through every bone in my body. But you will lose yourself to it, just as she began to before she fled. Maybe she fled because she didn't want to become you, I said. His eyes narrowed. She fled because she was afraid of what you would become. The cyclone lifted me off the ground. My shadow expanded wildly, stretching across the chamber walls, forming shapes wolf, woman, storm, fire. My breath hitched as memories not mine flickered through my mind. A woman with hair like silver-black flame. Eyes like mine. A voice whispering to a tiny newborn, "Forgive me, my love." My mother. Tears blurred the swirling chamber as her voice faded. When I looked at the king again, his expression had changed, not triumph, not fury, recognition. You are her, he whispered. And more. Light sparked at my fingertips. Not shadow. Light. It spilled across my palms like molten silver, blinding, soft, warm. It mixed with the darkness swirling inside me until the two forces twisted into one spiraling stream of luminous night. Leonardo stared, stunned. Seraphina, your power. The king took a step back. Impossible for him. But he did. You're the union, he said quietly. The bridge fate foretold. So the prophecy was wrong, I whispered. I'm not the destruction of the realms. No, his voice trembled. You are their balance. Power surged through me, stronger than anything I'd ever felt. My shadow pulsed, not hungry, not wild, loyal. The light inside me glowed bright, not blinding, not consuming, steady. My heritage wasn't a split. It was a fusion. A new lineage. A new force. The king lowered to one knee, the realm shaking with the movement. Daughter of the Shadow Queen, he said. Your destiny is not to shatter the realms. Your destiny is to rule them. I stepped forward, the cyclone dissipating, leaving a calm silence behind. I don't want your throne. Then what do you want? My shadow drew closer to my side, steady as a guardian. Leonardo reached me at last, pressing a hand to my back, grounding me. I want harmony, I said. For light and shadow. For wolves and spirits. For all who've suffered because of fear. The king's expression shifted, pain, pride, surrender all woven into one heavy look. Then you are truly her daughter. My chest tightened again, but this time with something like peace. The chamber softened. The darkness eased. And the king rose slowly, power dimmed, voice solemn. Your heritage is revealed, he said. What you choose next will decide the fate of both realms. I turned to Leonardo. His gaze burned with devotion and awe, his hand steady on my spine. My shadow pressed against my feet, humming like a second heartbeat. For the first time in my life, I wasn't torn between worlds. I was the world between them. And I was ready. The unification of the realms would begin with me. The first light of dawn had never felt so fragile, as if the world itself had been stitched back together overnight, but could tear again with the slightest tug. I stood atop the hill overlooking the fractured plains, the ruins of the Shadow Wolf's domain stretching below me like a blackened wound. Leonardo was beside me, his presence a steady warmth, yet even his strength could not erase the weight that pressed against my chest. I could feel every pulse of the two realms vibrating through me, threads of light and shadow intertwining beneath my skin. I had never imagined that I could hold the power to mend what centuries of hatred had torn apart. The prophecy I had once feared as a curse now hummed beneath my fingertips, a melody of control I had barely begun to understand. Shadow and light flowed through me, coiling and twisting like living water, but instead of chaos, there was order. I had learned to speak to my shadow, to bend it without breaking, to calm it without sacrificing myself. And as I took a step forward, the once hostile wolves, light and shadow alike, stood in cautious truce. Leonardo's gaze held mine, his amber eyes flickering with pride and something deeper, something unspoken that made the pulse of my heart quicken. There was no need for words. He had sacrificed power, bled through the darkness, to anchor me when the shadow threatened to rise too high, and now that anchor had made me strong enough to walk this path alone. The wolves of both realms shifted around me. The light wolves lowered their heads, the shadow wolves slowed their movements, hesitant yet obedient. I raised my hands, feeling the mingled warmth and chill of two worlds. It wasn't easy. Control had to be absolute, unwavering. One misstep, one surge of emotion, and the fragile piece could crumble. I reached inward, feeling the shadow that had once tried to consume me. Its essence pulsed, wild and untamed, a hunger and a longing wrapped into one. Enough, I whispered, and it stilled, the darkness folding itself neatly around me like a cloak rather than a predator. My shadow shifted, coiling at my feet, obedient but alive, waiting for my next command. And then I extended that control outward, a thread of will that touched every wolf, every heart in sight. The air shivered as the two realms began to merge. Cracks of black and white healed themselves. Rivers of silver light and dark mist entwined, forming paths that were neither purely shadow nor purely light. The wolves of both sides stepped carefully onto these paths, sensing safety in the balance I created. For the first time, I understood that I was not merely a bridge. I was the bridge. Leonardo's hand brushed mine, tentative, grounding. I didn't need him to guide me. I had already learned to stand, to hold, to lead. But his presence reminded me that even the strongest bridges needed support, that love could be a reinforcement as potent as magic itself. The harmony of the realms settled into me like a living rhythm, each beat synchronized with the others. And yet, even in triumph, I could feel the tension lurking beneath the edges, the faint tremor that whispered of unfinished business. My shadow shifted at my feet, a subtle reminder that control was a gift, not a guarantee. When the last shards of darkness wove into the light, I exhaled, a long, trembling breath that carried away centuries of fear. Both realms had been stitched together, not by force, not by battle, but by me. By my presence. By the choice to confront my shadow, to accept every fragment of myself, and to anchor it in love, loyalty, and purpose. Leonardo's voice cut through the quiet, soft, and reverent. "You've done what no one thought possible." I smiled faintly, letting the warmth of his admiration settle over me. "We've done it," I corrected, because nothing I had achieved would have been possible without him standing beside me, the unwavering shadow to my light. And as we watched the first wolves of the newly united realms step forward into a future they could scarcely imagine, I felt a strange calm wash over me. The prophecy had been fulfilled, not in destruction, but in creation. I was the bridge, the anchor, the keeper of balance. And yet, even in that moment of triumph, I could sense a deeper pulse beneath the surface, a hidden truth waiting for its unveiling. The shadow had been quiet for hours, draped around me like a protective veil, loyal yet watchful. I had mastered it, tamed its hunger, and now it moved as an extension of myself rather than a separate force of chaos. Yet, as I walked through the newly rebuilt lands, I could feel the lingering tension, the pulse of potential rebellion even in victory. Leonardo walked beside me, his hand occasionally brushing mine, a grounding tether to the warmth and light that balanced the shadow I carried. The wolves of both realms were learning to live alongside each other, their mistrust melting slowly into curiosity and respect. Children of light and shadow frolicked together in the fields, a living testament to what could be achieved when fear was met with courage. I smiled at them, but my smile was tinged with the understanding that peace was always a fragile thing, fragile but worth protecting. At the heart of the Shadow Wolf domain, the remnants of the old power still throbbed faintly. I approached it cautiously, shadow at my feet, coiling and spreading like a living sentinel. Leonardo followed, his presence steady and reassuring, yet I could feel the anticipation building in him. We both knew that my shadow was not entirely vanquished. It had been redeemed, yes, but never fully broken. Its loyalty was tested daily, a living consciousness that responded to the world as much as it did to me. I closed my eyes, letting the shadow settle completely, letting it merge with my own heartbeat. The sensation was intoxicating, a perfect balance of dominance and harmony. It was no longer a threat, yet it remained a powerful entity, capable of immense destruction if ever provoked. And in that balance, I found clarity. Leonardo's hand found mine again, his grip firm, grounding me to the tangible world. "It's done," he whispered, and I nodded, though my mind was still dancing on the edge of realization. The shadow twitched at my side, a subtle but undeniable sign that it had detected something I had not yet noticed. A whisper, faint, almost imperceptible, drifted through me, carried on the currents of dark energy. My heart stuttered as I felt it, a pulse unlike any I had encountered before, alien, ancient, and insistent. It was then that I understood the truth. The shadow that had followed me since birth, the one that had threatened to consume me, the one that Leonardo had helped me tame, it was not just mine. It was the remnant of an older power, a consciousness born from the very essence of the shadow realm, older than any prophecy, older than any alpha. It had been waiting, watching, bound to me but never truly subservient. I opened my eyes, and Leonardo saw the shift immediately, the tension, the unspoken realization that something fundamental had changed. My shadow swirled at my feet, alive, and then lifted, rising behind me like a living storm, black as night, but glowing faintly with a silvery edge. It stretched its form toward the sky, not in rebellion, but in acknowledgement, and I felt it speaking directly into the core of my being. "You have bound me, tamed me, but you have not yet freed me," it whispered, and the voice was mine, yet it was not. It was ancient, commanding, and aware of truths I could barely comprehend. Leonardo's grip tightened. "Seraphina." "I know," I said, my voice trembling, both fearful and awed. "I know." The revelation struck me with the force of a hurricane. The shadow was not just a part of me, it was a sentient legacy, a survivor of a realm older than our own, and now it had awakened fully. I was not merely a bridge between realms, I was its vessel. The realization brought both terror and exhilaration. I had thought my struggle was over. I had thought the war, the prophecy, and the curse had reached their conclusion. But now, as the shadow rose behind me in its full, living glory, I understood the truth. This was only the beginning. And as the first tendrils of its consciousness intertwined with mine, I felt a whisper of power, raw and infinite, coursing through my veins. The worlds had been reunited, peace had been achieved, but the legacy I carried was far greater, far older, and far more dangerous than anything I could have imagined. Leonardo's eyes met mine, and in that look, I saw both trust and fear, devotion and uncertainty. He knew, as I did, that nothing could ever be the same. The shadow stretched one final time, a surge of silvery darkness illuminating the land, and then it settled around me once more, loyal but awakened, aware but bound. I was no longer merely Seraphina, the cursed mate of a shadow wolf. I was the living bridge, the heir of an ancient consciousness, the keeper of a force older than the realms themselves.